Hey, welcome back. I'm Aspiringspike. Pioneer continues to be a wild format, and a new best deck has emerged, and I do believe that this is the current best deck in the format, and definitely the deck to beat. This is Blue-Black Inverter of Truth combo. For those of you not familiar with the combo, you play Inverter of Truth, which is a 4-mana 6/6 flyer. When it enters the battlefield, you exile all cards from your library face down, then you shuffle your graveyard into your library. And then you play a Thassa's Oracle or a Jace Wielder of Mysteries to win the game. This combo is very consistent. This combo is very hard to interact with because it doesn't inherently die to creature-based removal, and it's very, very good. I've been having a lot of success with this deck. So I will go ahead and discuss some of the card choices I've made. My version is just a little different than some of the other versions that have been popping around, and we will run it through League and see how it goes. So like usual, let's talk about the mana. There's a lot to talk about in this deck. One, we're an ally color pair, which means we don't have access to the blue-black fast land or the blue-black pain land, and our mana requirements are harsh. We have a triple blue 4-drop and 8 1-mana black spells. So we want a black on turn 1 ideally, and triple blue on turn 4. And with the mana restrictions of not having access to the blue-black fast land, I think that there are some concessions that you have to make. I think that either you have to play suboptimal lands like Choked Estuary. I think Choked Estuary is a really bad card. The Choked Estuary is a dual land from the cycle where you have to reveal an island or swamp from your hand for it to enter untapped. I've been really, really unhappy with playing that cycle of lands in my other brews in the past, and I'm choosing not to play any copies here. And that certainly is a concession that we are not going to have turn 1 Thoughtseize or Fatal Push as often as we could. I'm playing 1 Castle Locthwain and 1 Castle Vantress instead. I've been very happy having access to these. I think having access to these gives you a little bit of an edge in the mirror, and getting an edge in the mirror is very important at the moment. And I felt pretty good about my mana base so far. You know, Fatal Push is a card that you often won't need to cast until turn 2, and Thoughtseize is also a card that is fine on the later turns of the game. Moving on into the spells, again, we're playing 4 Fatal Push, 4 Thoughtseize. You know, these are the best interactive spells in the format, especially if you can afford to play 4 Fabled Passage to turn on your Fatal Pushes, Revolt. Really, really happy that we get to play these 8 cards in our deck. We're playing 4 Ops as card selection. Not only does it help us find our combo, but it fuels Dig Through Time. We'll get into Dig Through Time a little bit, but you know, this is one of, if not the best card in the format already. But it's extra good in this deck because it can exile your graveyard to make your Inverter of Truth Oracle combo go faster, and it can also find just your 2 combo pieces. This is the best Dig Through Time deck in the format, and Dig Through Time is among the best cards in Pioneer, and I think just because this is the best Dig Through Time deck, that's just one of the best reasons to play this strategy. So I'm playing 4 Censors. A lot of lists are playing 2 Censors and 2 Thought Erasures. I'm just playing 4 Censors instead. A lot of people have really liked the Thought Erasures, but in my experience, 2-mana discard spells in Pioneer I just think are just not worth including in your deck. I think spending 2 mana to not impact the board in a format that really, really does care about impacting the board is not really where you want to be, especially when you have other options. You know, you can play more spot removal, you can play more Censors, you can play more Drown in the Locks, and I've been very happy with 0 Thought Erasures. I'm also playing 3 Drown in the Locks. A lot of people have been playing 2. I'm playing 3 in the main deck, and I often will board 1 out against opponents who have Delve spells, but I've liked 3 in the main a lot. Some lists, a lot of the earlier lists, were playing like 3 Thassa's Oracles, 2 Jace Wielder of Mysteries. Canister has been really liking the split of 4 Oracles, 3 Jaces, and I like the split as well too. I've seen some people playing the full 8 copies. I think that's a little too many, especially having 8 4-mana spells just feels like a little awkward on the curve. But I also think playing 7 of this half of the combo lets you trim like 1 or 2, sometimes 3 in certain matchups. And we're playing one Murderous Cut. Murderous Cut is a very good card in this deck. Also, any way you can delve away your graveyard to set up for your combo is going to make things go really quickly. Because if you have 6 or 7 cards in your graveyard, and then you cast Inverter of Truth, it's going to take some time to kill them with an Oracle or a Jace, rather than in just one go with a Delve spell. So that's the main deck. Let's go ahead and get onto the sideboard. So going over the sideboard briefly, we're playing 3 Jace's Defeat, 3 Dispute, 1 Negate, 1 Duress. I really like Jace's Defeat a lot because this card counters both Thassa's Oracle and Jace Wielder of Mysteries, and you get to scry too if you counter a Jace Wielder of Mysteries. I found one of the best ways to win the mirror is to let them resolve Inverter of Truth and then counter their combo payoff, and then they lose to decking themselves. And I really like that this counters both of the combo pieces, while Negate only hits Jace Wielder of Mysteries. So that's why we're playing this split here. You also bring in these 8 cards against blue-white control and Lotus Field ramp, and not Lotus Field ramp, Lotus Field combo. And it's kind of nice that Jace's Defeat counters Baral against the blue-red version, and it counters Dream Trawler out of blue-white control. And most of the non-creature spells you'd be countering with Negate are blue anyways. There are some exceptions, Gideon of the Trials, Thoughtseize, Underworld Breach, but I've been really happy with this card, and I would really recommend playing this in the sideboard of your blue decks at the moment. I'm playing 2 Aether Gusts. I really like this card against Chunky Red, against the green Stompy decks, and I also like this against 5-color Niv to Light. It counters, or not counters, but it stops the Niv Mizzet and the Bring to Light for a turn. And those decks are playing Slaughter games pretty often these days, and Aether Gust can put that on the top for a turn, and maybe that buys you the time to cast your Inverter and try to combo off next turn. And I really like the split of Kalitas, Ritual Soot against lots of the creature decks in the format at the moment. Kind of the stock sweeper in these sideboards right now is Cry of the Carnarium, but that card is really only good against mono black aggro, while Ritual Soot is good against the Stompy decks, blue, red, and soul artifacts, the white Heliod combo decks. Just a much wider range of decks is this card good against. I'm playing this instead of Languish because it's better against Ensoul artifacts because it can hit the Ensoul artifacted creatures. It's better against the Stompy decks because it can hit Lovestruck Beast and Rotting Regisaur. It's better against the occasional Bogles deck too, because those creatures are often bigger than the -4/-4 that Languish would provide. And it's also nice that this card doesn't kill your own Inverters or your own Kalitases. The reason to play Languish instead is because it's better against Soulflayer, although I think you're already pretty good against Soulflayer because they're pretty bad against your combo. And it's also better against Spirits by a little bit because it gives -4/-4, and Selfless Spirit can't stop Ritual of Soot. But again, I like the split more than the Cry of the Carnariums. And I like Kalitas a lot more than I like a card like Grafdigger's Cage. One, I think that we're already pretty favored against the Dredge decks because our combo just kills them faster than they can Goldfish usually, and they can't interact with the combo. And Kalitas is very good against burn decks, creature decks, mono black aggro, and graveyard decks. So I really liked this package here. I'm playing 1 Ultimate Price. Often you'll, I think you do want like 1 more spot removal spell, and Aether Gust is kind of that in some matchups. But what I like about Ultimate Price instead of Cast Down is Ultimate Price can kill Rankle, and Cast Down can't. And I think Rankle is super duper important to kill. And a lot of the legendary creatures that exist in Pioneer are also multicolored, like Niv Mizzet, Uro. There really isn't that much more that Cast Down is killing that Ultimate Price is. One of the big ones is Inverter of Truth, but in my experience, when your opponents cast Inverter of Truth, the matchup is not about killing the Inverter of Truth. The matchup is now about countering their Oracle or their Jace Wielder of Mysteries. So that's why I like Ultimate Price more than Cast Down. Really, really small thing. It's not going to come up a ton, but I do feel pretty confident that this is just the tiny bit better. But that's my 75. I do think that this is a deck that is still being tuned, not just by me, but by a lot of people playing this deck, and I could certainly see this list being 5 to 10 cards different by next week. But I like where I'm at with the deck, and I hope that after a few matches you can see why I've chosen some of these cards, and maybe you can take my knowledge and it will influence your own decision when building this deck for yourself. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into some games. Okay, so we are on the draw for game number 1. I like this hand. We have the combo. We have Inverter plus Jace. We've got some Cyclers to enable Delve, and we've got a Delve spell. Alright, so this is the white-black Auras deck that was played at the RPTQ this weekend. Looked very sweet. I'm going to try my best to get a little bit of value by fatal pushing the Hateful Eidolon in response to an aura, but I think it's good to respond to this card, which can grant protection on the Eidolon. So we can hold up Sensor slash cycling Sensor here. Have not played this matchup yet, although my opponent's deck does look very sweet. One thing to think about is they have Gideon of the Trials in the sideboard, which is the best sideboard card against the Inverter deck. And we don't have any ways to actually remove it from play outside of attacking it. So likely the way we'll have to win is by thought seizing it or countering it, or theoretically we just resolve a 2 Inverter of Truths. I will censor to counter Ephemia here. They have an enchantment in the graveyard, so they would start to get to make 2/2s immediately. Interesting. So we can kill this. I've been avoiding saying this first word here. I feel like the new Theros had an above average amount of hard to pronounce cards. Alseid of Life's Bounty. So we can remove it now. They do play some amount of protection spells, but I don't think it's actually demanding an answer at the moment. I think that we can afford to just pass for now. Yeah, I don't think that this really demands an answer either. We can take 4. So Griffspoon is an aura that gets value while it's in the graveyard. I'm gonna go ahead and cycle the Censor. And yeah, if we hit a land, I think that there's a lot of value in just using this Murderous Cut now. That way next turn we get to cast Inverter of Truth and then we'll have 1 card left in our library, and Jace will win the game for us. And there's really not a ton our opponent is going to be able to do about it. They've got 1 card in their hand, they're drawing up to 2. I don't believe they play like main deck Thoughtseizes or anything like that. So we should get the W here. Cool. So up a game against white-black auras. Ritual of Soot is going to be phenomenal in this matchup, especially if they can get their creatures. It kills their creatures indiscriminately. I do think I want the negate 2 for Gideon of the Trials. I think that card is pretty scary. Could maybe even bring in Duress too. Now, usually against these creature-based decks, I find myself trimming on Censor and Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, especially when we bring in 4/4 drops. You got to cut more of your 4 drops. I can see maybe trimming another Censor, potentially a Thassa's Oracle, but I don't think that we actually want to go down to less than 5 of these type of the combo pieces. Let's trim another Censor. Especially on the draw, it gets a lot worse. We could also bring in Ultimate Price. Ultimate Price kills basically everything they could have. Censor does seem like the worst interactive spell we have in our deck at the moment, especially on the draw. We might bring in some more on the play. But with that, let's go to game number 2. Here on the draw with this hand, we can't cast Thoughtseize on turn 1, which, like we talked about in our deck tech, is kind of a concession with how we built it. I might mulligan this hand. Thassa's Oracle is really like our worst spell to have without Inverter. We do have a Feta Pools to cycle, but this hand is rather slow, and I'd rather have like a turn 1, you know, have early Fatal Push, have a Ritual of Soot. Yeah, I like this hand a decent bit more. I think we're gonna keep this. I think we're gonna put back an Opt, and this hand is very likely to just try to win on turn 5 with the combo. Hopefully our opponent doesn't have a Gideon of the Trials. We draw on an island, which is interesting. I think I'm just gonna play the Feta Pools though, because we just want to get these 4 lands in play. And we're not 100% sure what we're trying to opt for here. Right, Apostle of Purifying Light is interesting. If we have only 1 card in our graveyard, and they have 2 mana up, we can't go for the combo, since they can, you know, exile that card from the yard. I opted main phase to see if we can hit a Thoughtseize, and we did. Opponent has 2 All That Glitters and a Cartouche. I think we want to take the Cartouche so they can't double spell next turn. And right now, our hand is just going to win on turn 5, and their hand is not going to be able to Goldfish in time, I don't think. Although they did shock, so maybe they drew like a... Oh, they're just keeping up Alseid mana. No play here on turn 3. We're just going to go ahead and take our beats. I guess, actually, maybe I did some poor calculations. Yeah, because our opponent's going to be able to attack us for 9. Oh, you know what? Inverter of Truth is colorless, so it can block Apostle of Purifying Light, no problemo. Alright, I guess that's our plan. So our opponent needs a removal spell for this, some way to make this unblockable, or some way to pump this by 2, or a Gideon of the Trials. So they have a lot of things that could potentially win the game for them. It looks like they're going to eat something with Apostle, but that doesn't matter because we have 2 cards in our graveyard. So again, any of those, we lose to a lot of things here. We lose to a lot of things. They did have a way to pump the Alseid, so lost game 2. We're gonna go ahead and come back for game number 3. Karametra's Blessing is a pretty sweet card. It gives +2/+2, and if it's an enchanted creature or an enchantment creature, which is every creature in their deck basically, it also gains Hexproof and Indestructible, which is pretty good. +2/+2 Hexproof and Indestructible is a very good trick for 1 mana. So being on the play, do we want to make any changes here? It's possible we don't want Kalitas. Like, one of the reasons I like this card, and I don't think I articulated this in my deck tech, or not my deck tech, my sideboarding, is I like that this is an alternate win con through a Gideon of the Trials, and I think that that's a pretty important thing to have access to. Let's go ahead and keep it as is. I like this hand well enough. You know, we have the combo. We have 2 1-mana spells here. We have a Kalitas as a possible backup way to win through a Gideon of the Trials. You have a kind of a painful hand with double Watery Grave and Thoughtseize, but still fine. They do have Gideon of the Trials, but they also have Shram, which is certainly a concern. I'm going to take the Gideon, especially because we have the combo in our hand. We need to make sure we don't lose to Gideon of the Trials. Drawing our second Kalitas is pretty bad here, although I do think I like drawing Fatal Push. I'm actually going to play the Watery Grave tapped here. Playing Watery Grave tapped is going to signal to our opponent that we do not have Fatal Push, and I want them to cast the Shram this turn so we can push it without them having mana up for their Alseid. Man, drew another 4-drop. You know, maybe we couldn't afford to top the Fatal Push because we have a hand of 4 drops. That might have been true. All that glitters on the Alcid. Hateful Eidolon is a great card. So now they get to draw a card for each aura that was enchanted to the Alcid, which is just one, but getting to cycle your enchantments is a pretty powerful thing. We basically need our opponent to stumble at this point, and we need to rip runner land, which is not the easiest task. I don't think I'm going to cast this Thoughtseize. I think that if our opponent had a threat to deploy, they would have cast it, and they didn't cast it, so I think that they're stumbling. Obviously, kind of, awkward to stumble here. It's going to happen some percentage of the time with any deck. I still think we're still okay if we can hit runner land. Yeah, this Thoughtseize doesn't seem like it matters a ton. They'll probably take the Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, but just being able to resolve Kalitas is going to be a big game. And if they put Jace in the graveyard, we can still cast Inverter, and we'll have a Jace to draw into to win the game. They do take the Jace. They attack us for 2. Down to 8. 1 mana shy of a Dig Through Time. I think I'm still not casting Thoughtseize. I know we could cast the Thoughtseize to put a card into our yard for dig, but I don't think it's quite worth it. Well, we've drawn a card to put into our yard for dig. I'm going to cast this on the Hateful Eidolon and my opponent's upkeep. They're going to give pro black, I imagine. I mean, if our opponent continues to stumble, and they are stumbling, then, we could maybe do some work. Maybe we, dig through time into Swamp, Fatal Push, or something like that. Ooh. Okay, so we go to 4. There's a land, finally. Sad, awkward to exile our Jace from our graveyard. Ideally, we'd leave it in the yard, but I think I want the ability to find a Fatal Push. I'm going to take Drowned Catacomb, Thassa's Oracle, though. Play a Drowned Catacomb. Opponent has like a million top decks. Any aura kills us here. But if they don't find one, we do get to play a Lifelinker, which can block our opponent's board next turn. That does not kill us. Okay, so still in it. We go to 1. We need them to brick again, and it's also not unlikely at all that our opponent has a removal spell in their hand. But we are playing to our outs. We're also dead to one of these guys. So our opponent has not killed us yet, which makes me think that we are not dead. Yep. And now recast Inverter of Truth. Man, it's turn 10. We just barely stumbled into our 4th land. And we're going to win next turn unless our opponent has... I guess even even one of these no longer does it because we can block with Inverter. So they need a Gideon of the Trials. And they conceded. Wow. I really did not think we were going to win that game. We missed a ton of land drops, but our opponent also stumbled a lot. They didn't have a lot of action, and Mana Screw often does beat Mana Flood. I'll see you guys for round number 2. So we are on the play for match number 2. This is a fine hand. We're going to keep it. Very likely to lead on Thoughtseize on turn 1 here. And we're playing the mirror. The mirror it's super important to feel comfortable and confident in the mirror. I'm going to take the Thought Erasure. This is the most meaningful piece of interaction our opponent has here. Opponent is playing Choked Estuary, and they reveal the swamp that we already knew about so that they can cast Opt on their turn. I do like that we have Castle Vantress, and I think I'm just going to cycle Fetid Pools here. We do need the Fetid Pools for black mana for the Inverter of Truth, but I also want to get cards into my graveyard for this Dig Through Time as quickly as I can. They're fetching with their Fabled Passage on their main phase. I mean, I imagine this is just a shortcut. Alright, cycle fetid pulls. Drew a second inverter, which is unlikely to matter a ton. I do think I want to cast this Thoughtseize. I opted main phase in case we saw a Thoughtseize. This puts another card into our graveyard for Dig Through Time. Yeah, I'll take the well, if we take the Jace, it lets them cast the inverter a little more comfortably. We could take, I mean, we could just counter either one with Drown. Yeah, I guess we'll take the. This is again. I'll take the Jace. Jace is a card that's like both pretty good against the inverter because it can come down in plus and make it awkward for you to just deck yourself before you can combo off. It's also just a good card to resolve and generate card advantage. I think eventually you'll win the game. That being said, I will Drown in anything, almost anything they play here, so we can have Dig up next turn for sure. But definitely going to Drown Inverter of Truth if they cast it. Looks like they are going to cast it. Oh, thinking about it, they decided to go for it, and we're going to Drown. So we still know about Thassa's Oracle, Fatal Push, and another Swamp. So we could resolve this Dig Through Time while our opponent is tapped out. I do see a lot of value in that. I'm going to do it. I think the best two cards we could see here are Black Source Thoughtseize. We did not hit Black Source Thoughtseize, but we did hit a Black Source, and I think we'll take Watery Grave Opt here. So we're going to hope that our opponent, in like the two cards we don't know about, didn't find another Inverter of Truth. They could maybe opt into one and play another land. Although they would have 6 cards in their graveyard, so it's not clear that our opponent would be able to kill us before we kill them with the combo. And you know what? I guess I'm not going to cast this Opt. I might, depending on like what happens here. Yeah. But the reason I wouldn't want to cast the Opt is so that way we draw to 0 cards the turn after we play the Inverter, and then we don't lose our Thassa's Oracle to... we don't lose the game from having our Thassa's Oracle Fatal Pushed. I'll certainly keep another Oracle. One nice thing here is we also get to shuffle an Oracle into our library with this Inverter of Truth. And another nice thing is we have 3 cards in our library now, and they're on a 3-turn clock with the Inverter of Truth. And if, you know, somehow they're able to deal with both Oracles, we do get to shuffle them back in potentially with the backup Inverter. Our opponents put a card on top of their library. The card is a Thoughtseize. So we do know they have a Fatal Push to answer... Oh, they took the Drown into lock? Interesting. So they're just going to try to Fatal Push this Thassa's Oracle. Yeah, that is their last card. Well, we drew the second Oracle, so we just win. We had a 33% chance of winning for sure this turn. It was going to be pretty unlikely that our opponent was going to be able to fight through 2 Oracles and an Inverter to shuffle them back in. And also, you know, they do lose to us attacking with the Inverter 3 times. Cool. So up a game in the mirror. Always nice to win game 1 of the mirror match because you are, like, you know, pretty close to 50-50 for games 2 and 3. Here is the sideboard plan I've been employing. I think that for the most part you don't really want the spot removal spells post board. Like I leave in 2 Drown into Locks as spot removal spells, And if I see like a bunch of pack rats or Jace Prince Prodigies, I'll bring in like the Murderous Cut / the Fatal Pushes. But for the most part, like, I think the counter spells are way more important. I think that the matchup is about protecting your Jaces, going for the combo at the right spot, trying to win the game by countering your opponent's Jace or Thassa's Oracle after they cast Inverter. I don't even think a backup win condition is very important in the case for Unmoored Ego. If like some people play Unmoored Ego to Unmoored Ego Inverter of Truth, but you can still just win the game with Jace. And Unmoored Ego is very counterable. I'm going to keep this hand on the draw. It is awkward that our land comes into play tapped, but we're a 25 land deck on the draw. We're very likely to hit a land, especially because we have 2 cantrips here. And we have the combo, we have a Dig Through Time. We have a lot of cards that go to the graveyard for cheap. I like this hand. Opponent Thoughtseizes our opt, and that was certainly a good play. We could stumble here, and I think that that's a risk we're willing to take with this hand. And they have a Jace on turn 2. Thoughtseizing the Jace on the play, very powerful. Might consider bringing in, again, some spot removal for this card in game 3 if we get there. So we missed on our first draw step, we missed on our second draw step, and we missed on our cycle of Censor. Discard an island and play a tapped Choked Estuary. Interesting. We did hit. I'm gonna go ahead and cycle Censor. No, let's hold up Jace's defeat for potential Jace Wielder of Mysteries here. Can't really let them resolve that. They do know about this Jace's defeat. Probably cycle Fetid Pools. They're about to get to flip this Jace, which is not good for us, and we don't have a lot of recourse for that either. Alright, cycle Censor. We found a land, but it is a tap land here. Awkward. So if our opponent flashes back Thoughtseize with Jace, and they take any non-Dig Through Time card, we do get to cast Dig Through Time. I do think they're going to flash back Thoughtseize. My prediction is they're going to flash back Thoughtseize, and with the hopes that they can clear the way for a 4-mana spell, be it an Inverter or a Jace Wielder of Mysteries. But we do have two answers to a Jace, and we also can potentially defeat Thassa's Oracle. Okay, so no 4-drop is being cast here, and we found a land of our own. So why don't we go ahead and cast this Thoughtseize just to see what we need to be playing around in future turns. So they have a Dig Through Time, a Jace Wielder of Mysteries, unsurprisingly, and an Inverter of Truth. It's a very good hand from our opponent. So they can cast the Dig Through Time here, which we kind of are just priced into negating. And then they get to resolve a Jace. Either way, we're taking the Mystical Dispute. It's just so bad for us if this turn involves them. Like if we don't take Dispute, they get to dispute our counterspell. I will negate this Dig Through Time, so our opponent can resolve either Jace or Inverter here. Probably Jace, yeah. They go for the Jace, unsurprisingly. We can resolve a Jace of our own, unless they found a dispute in the 2 cards we don't know about. I don't hate drawing Fetid Pools here. I targeted my opponent to make it more difficult for them to win immediately with their combo. And now that we've drawn Dig Through Time, we can actually Dig Through Time for a land, have only 2 cards in our library, our graveyard, Inverter of Truth, and then plus Jace, and go for the win. Our opponent targets Dig Through Time with their Jace. Oh no, it's their turn 7. Have they played a land yet? They have played a land, so yeah, we actually lose to the same thing. It's a line I missed. Yeah, they're going to play Inverter plus Jace and win the game. So, very quick game 2. Going to go ahead and go to game 3. Now the question is, do we want to bring any spot removal for Jace, Friend's Prodigy? I'm not sure that we do. We have, 3 Mystical Disputes and 4 Thoughtseizes. We still have Drown in the Locks. They very likely only have 1 or 2 copies. I'm going to go ahead and just not... I like the sideboard plan a lot. I'm going to continue to submit like this. And I'm going to choose to be on the draw. Again, I said this in the deck tech, but I feel pretty confidently that it's correct to be on the draw in this matchup. There's just so many cheap 1-mana interaction, and a card advantage is usually the deciding factor. And mulliganing on the play is like pretty close to a death sentence. Oh man. Our opponent did not realize that we chose to be on the play in F6 through their first turn, which is something that's gonna happen from time to time when you choose to be on the draw. Doesn't feel good because it's just not very good testing, but it is what happened. Opponent reveals an island to their choked estuary. Our hand is pretty good. I'm liking it a lot. Obviously, we're in great position because our opponent, skipped their first turns. We just got to be up a card for free. We do need to find 1 more land here, but I don't think that we're going to be... I don't think we're going to have too hard a time doing that. I think I like shocking here. I want to play the Watery Grave for sure, so we could potentially have the ability to draw another blue source and play Jace next turn. And I like shocking. I don't think life totals matter a ton, and our opponent might respect... they might respect a dispute plus another counterspell. That's like what this is signaling. Also, it's possible that our opponent goes to Thoughtseize and we want to drown it, and we could pay for like a censor. I'm going to drown into lock this. I like using my drowns very aggressively in this matchup because they can get dead from your opponent's dig through times. Also, being on the draw, I think trading cards for cards makes a lot of sense. And our opponent probably just has to take the Jace here, since if we draw an island, it's just so bad for them if we can resolve Jace. And if we draw an island, we can potentially play Inverter of Truth. We did not draw an island. Obviously, we don't want to play Inverter of the Truth since we can't win the game with this Jace if we can't cast it. But I'm thinking about playing something main phase, but it's going to be hard for them to resolve anything through all of this permission. I'd like to draw a land here. We drew another Jace. So if they cast a Dig Through Time, I'm going to Jace's Defeat, targeting their Dig Through Time. Pretty easy decision here. How do I feel about drowning this opt? I don't feel half bad about it. I like that it puts another card in the yard for dig, and that way if we draw a blue source, we can spend 3 mana on a dig and hold up Jace's Defeat. It is pretty bad for us if they go like land Jace though. I'll let opt resolve. But I do not hate drowning this opt. Just like trading cards for cards when you're on the draw is pretty good, and getting another card in the yard for dig also seemed pretty good. I'm gonna cast an opt here. I'll keep Thoughtseize. And obviously we want to land, but this is gonna put another card in the yard for dig, which is nice, and I do think Thoughtseize is good here. Our opponent has Ashiok, Dig Through Time, which they cannot cast on our end of turn. And probably want to take Dig. Yeah, I'm pretty okay if they're just casting like these spells at sorcery speed. Yeah, everything else they have is sorcery speed, so I think it makes sense to take the instant speed threat. And they're not very close to being able to resolve 2 of these. So they have Ashiok, Oracle, Inverter, Jace, and a mystery card. I'd be pretty surprised if they didn't just cast one of these threats, which will, you know, snap a counter off on. So they drew a Watery Grave for the turn, so their hand is Inverter, Oracle, Jace. Let's cast a Dig Through Time. We know that it's going to resolve. I'm going to leave Jace, Wielder of Mysteries, in my graveyard. You always want the Inverter payoffs to be in your graveyard, so when you shuffle them in with Inverter, that's like what you want to draw, of course. So Castle Vantress, I think, is the land that we want the most. Why don't we take Castle Vantress and Thoughtseize and play the castle, Thoughtseize our opponent. Probably taking Inverter, because you don't have a good answer to the Inverter right now. Yeah, they have 2 ways to win with it, so it's not like we can necessarily fight over it. Yeah, we'll take the Inverter. It's going to make the Oracle a lot worse. And I would love to get the Scry 2 off of this Jace's defeat, although I think my opponent knows. Yeah, no, sorry, this is the Exile Zone. I think they know about the Jace's defeat. So, could try to like spike a land off of Jace. I'm gonna cast Opt here, and I'll go ahead and pretty happily Thoughtseize my opponent's Jace, and then we can Dig Through Time on our opponent's end of turn, set up for the combo. I'm gonna put a card on top. Card is a Thoughtseize. I'm gonna go ahead and Dig Through Time in response. That way we can just get a 2-for-1 here. I don't want them to take the dig. I think I'd like to take Island Jace. That way we can play a Jace next turn with Jace's defeat up. I think my opponent's going to take Inverter of Truth. That's probably just okay. They go to run out their Thassa's Oracle. They put a card on top, so why don't we go ahead and play Jace and then target our opponent with Jace's ability. This does 2 things. 1, we get to shuffle away the card that they put on top, and 2, next turn we can set up the win with Inverter by not putting more cards in our yard. So yeah, now our opponent is dead. We don't want to cycle Fetid Pools, because that doesn't let us win next turn with Jace. Our opponent knows that we have the Inverter, so they go ahead and concede. And we're off to a 2-0 start. See you next round. Okay, so we are on the play for match number 3. I like this hand. We do need a second black to go for the combo, but other than that, we have the combo in our hand. If this was a choked estuary, notably, we'd have a much better hand here. Opponent plays a tri-land and passes. Usually the decks that play it's the 5-color Niv deck that's playing these Frontier Bivouacs. Just the tri-lands in general. Could censor Gilded Goose. I don't hate that. It's gonna slow our opponent down a decent amount. Yeah, I'm in for this. I'm in for censoring a goose. And there's our second black source. I'm going to go ahead and cast an opt. If we draw a Thoughtseize, I'll cast it now. Don't think I really want this Murderous Cut. So if we cast the invert, yeah, so this other opt is like fine to cast here. Although putting the fourth card in the yard does actually make it to where we're not going to be able to go Inverter and then win the turn after with Oracle. But I think that that's okay. I think getting this Thoughtseize resolved is valuable enough. I think we just want to take the Thought Erasure. Yeah, their Niv Mizzet is pretty slow. Their Assassin's Trophy doesn't matter that much. Also, if you know 3 of our 4 cards in our graveyard or our library after casting the Inverter are cantrips, it's going to be not that difficult to win quickly with the Oracle. Our opponent is also going to need to hold up Assassin's Trophy for the Oracle, so that way they don't die. They need to remove it if we still. So if we have no cards in our library when we cast Oracle, we win even if they remove it. But if they can remove our Devotion in response, then we lose. They also do have to answer this Inverter of Truth. I'm going to hold up Censor. If our opponent casts Bring to Light, I'll censor it. But if they cast Niv Mizzet, I think I'm just going to cycle Censor and try to just win with the Oracle next turn. Yeah, they can't really tap out. They shock in their Temple Garden. Okay. So yeah, why don't we go ahead and cycle the Censor and just try to get to no cards in our library. So the opt does accomplish this. We'll just need to make sure not to cycle the other Censor. I'll draw the Thoughtseize. We'll draw our last card. Oh, it's an opt, not a Censor. Cast Thoughtseize. See what interaction our opponent is working with. I mean, they are representing something in addition to the trophy, but their deck doesn't play like very much at instant speed. And they do concede. Going on to game 2. I do like the disputes and the gusts, the defeats. Dislike the pushes. I've been -1 Jace, -1 Oracle in this matchup, but it's possible we just want 3 Jaces for card advantage. Yeah, this is pretty close to what I've been doing in this matchup so far. 3 disputes, 2 gusts, 3 defeats, 1 negate, 4 push, 1 cut, 1 Oracle, 1 Jace, and 2 Censor. And I've liked this split, and I have found this matchup to be favorable. So let's go ahead and go to game 2. Okay, so we are on the draw for game 2. Gonna send this one back. Our opponent has also mulliganed to 6. Gonna keep this hand, and I think we're putting back one of the Watery Graves. Turn 1 Goose, interesting. I think I'm interested in cycling the Censor. We just have a handful of 2-mana interaction. Hopefully our opponent doesn't cast a Teferi Time Raveler on turn 2. That would be really bad. Although they might think about a Mystical Dispute. They do not think about a Mystical Dispute. This is going to be hard to beat a turn 2 Teferi. We do not have like any like Noxious Grasp or anything to deal with that. No cards in their yard to drown the Goose either. Yeah, turn 2 Teferi on the play is tough. You know, we do have disputes and Thoughtseizes to potentially stop this from happening. But not this game. Sylvan Caryatid. They did draw a card with Teferi also. Yeah, I think we're just going to get niv'd next turn. Pretty likely to concede if we get niv'd next turn. Teferi is just turning off 4 cards in our hand. So they're going to draw step Thought Erasure. Okay. I imagine they're just taking Thoughtseize. They take the dig through time, which also makes sense. I'm going to go ahead and cast my Thoughtseize, though. Take their second to Fairy, and I'm also going to go ahead and drown their Goose. Really, really doubt we're going to see our opponent cash in their Teferi for a card this turn. And they're going to play their second Caryatid, or third Caryatid, rather. No, they top deck to Bring to Light, or a Niv Mizzet. And they got a Bring to Light, a Thought Erasure, an Unmoored Ego, a Dreadbore. Let's go ahead and go to game 3. So we're going to choose to be on the play for game 3. I do think that there is an argument for choosing to be on the draw when we have so much cheap interaction for their like very clunky spells, but like we saw that game, if they just turn 2 to Teferi us, we're going to want to be able to have our 2-mana interaction up. Okay, so we're on the play for game 3. I'm going to keep this hand. I think we're going to lead on Drowned Catacomb. Unlikely to really, really matter. But like it potentially gives us the ability to double Dispute next turn. I'll play Swamp here, that way we can cast Aether Gust on a Sylvan Caryatid. Instead of the other option would just play Fabled Passage this turn. Alright, Thoughtseize resolves. I imagine Dig Through Time is going, which is okay. Obviously we'd like to have our dig, but nothing we can do about it. And they are going to get, you know, perfect info about what cards in our hand they need to be playing around. This hand really wants a castle. Yeah, I'll pretty happily Aether Gust to Caryatid. They put it on the bottom. Maybe we could have actually disputed Caryatid instead. Not 100% sure. I do like drawing Inverter of Truth, though. Certainly going to dispute that. We're just going to run their threats into our counter spells, which makes sense. Like their deck is just all sorcery speed threats. They're not really going to be able to effectively play around our cheap answers forever. Drawing another land there does stink. We really did want to have this Dig Through Time in our hand. Our opponent does have Uberg mana, I believe. Gonna let Caryatid resolve, of course. They're still a couple turns away from being able to pay for a dispute on their Niv. This is interesting. Do we go for Inverter? I think we do. If our opponent has like something to answer the oracles, like it's possible we just win by attacking with Inverter. We can also dispute a Bring to Light. We don't win next turn, and there's no card in our graveyard that cycles to let us win next turn, but we could possibly draw like Aether Gust to interact with our opponent for a turn, and then win the turn after with Thassa's Oracle. Certainly, like, very risky to go for the Inverter this turn, but I think it's correct. Like, we don't have really anything else going on, and, you know, this is the combo deck we're choosing to play. I think that you need to learn to not be too afraid to go for it when the time is right. So they do know about the second, dispute. So this Niv Mizzet is bait, but it's bait we have to take. So our best draw is probably the other dispute or an Aether Gust, so 50-50. We drew Fabled Passage. We don't have a land to get with it, of course. So just going to attack with Inverter, hope our Thassa's Oracle doesn't get discarded. The 3 cards in our library are Dig Through Time, Aether Gust, and Mystical Dispute. We're 1 mana short next turn of being able to go dig. No, we're 2 mana short. We're going dig get all the cards out of our library, and then cast Oracle to play around a removal spell. Hopefully this is just another Niv. It's Bring to Light. What are they going to bring to light for? Unmoored Ego. Interesting. So are they going to name Jace, or are they going to name Thassa's Oracle? I guess they named Thassa's Oracle because if we had Jace, we would have just cast it. So pretty easy Oracle name. So, and we also draw a card. So we're going to have to win by attacking with Inverter of Truth, but we're going to have 2 interactive spells, right? I guess not necessarily. So ideally we just draw our Aether Gust this turn. Yeah, I think if we draw Aether Gust, we've got a good chance. If we don't, I don't think we do. Okay, we drew the Aether Gust. Does our opponent have an answer to this Inverter? And is that answer going to be able to beat Gust Dispute? I don't think that they would leave in Supreme Verdict, but maybe they do for situations like this if they're like super experienced in the matchup. This is exciting. I don't think I've won maybe like 1 game with Inverter beats. It's not like very common. Okay, we can Aether Gust a Dreadbore, and then we have a Dispute up for most things they could play here. It would have to be another Dreadbore or something like that. Yeah, it's not that likely that they have a 2-mana spell here to kill Inverter of Truth. Cool, we did it. That was very, very exciting. Like, it did come down to were we going to draw the Dig or were we going to draw the Gust, and we drew the Gust. Awesome. We're 3-0. See you guys for round number 4. So we're on the draw for round number 4. We've got a really weird hand. I think we're going to keep just because I think Triple Thoughtseize on the draw is such a powerful thing to be doing. And we also have a Fatal Push if a creature gets through on the first couple of turns. We only have 3 swamps in the deck, so there's only 2 more lands in our entire deck that doesn't tap for black here that we could draw. Or sorry, there's only 2 more black lands to draw into. So I'm going to take a Soulscar Mage, and then next turn, Thoughtseize the Bone Crusher Giant, and probably Fatal Push the Soulscar Mage. It really does stink to, have a triple Thoughtseize draw against the red deck. But here we are. Obviously, we didn't know what we were playing against. Opponent decides not to Lightning Strike anything. Well, I'm going to go ahead and Thoughtseize. They'll probably just cast Stomp in response, I suppose. Yeah, to keep their Bone Crusher Giant in hand. Pretty good for them. Yeah, I'm going to take the Soulscar Mage, and then I think I'm going to Thoughtseize the Lightning Strike. Doesn't seem like a great trade. I'm just going to Fatal Push here. Like, this basically just gains us 1 life, because we're trading a 2 life loss for, 3, effectively. We can probably Thoughtseize it next turn anyways. Goblin Chain, I guess we'll take the Chain Whirler. We drew the 3rd swamp. Oh my, we only had 1 more swamp in our deck. We also had a Castle Locked Wain, but if we were going to draw a land, it was not very likely to be a black land. Weird game, weird game. There's blue mana. Are we... there's no way we're going to win if our library is... I mean, I just don't think we're going to win in general, I suppose, but I'm going to lead off with an Opt here. Excuse me. So yeah, we Fatal Push the Bone Crusher Giant, and then we're dead to Lightning Strike. Yeah, we just didn't have outs there. Weird game. Weird game. We just kind of died when we drew the 3rd swamp. Also, triple Thoughtseize against the red deck, not ideal. I'm going to bring in the Aether Gusts and the Kalitas. Going to trim on Jace, Wielder of Mysteries. Going to trim on Thoughtseize. Maybe we went no Thoughtseize and we went 2 Jace. That sounds good to me. Let's do something like this. Haven't played this matchup a ton. I think it's probably slightly in our favor. So we're on the play for game 2. I'm going to keep this hand. We're going to play Fetid Pools on turn 1. Put its mulligan to 6. I wonder if they have some like, you know, techie sideboard card for this matchup. I don't think that in mono red you have a ton of options though. I think your best bet is usually just going to be aggressive. There might be an argument for not sacking the Fabled Passage if they don't play a 2-drop. That way, if they have a 3-mana creature, we get to Fatal Push it. I am certainly interested in like getting value out of these pushes. Let's opt in response. Another Fabled Passage. That's not bad. So now we can, you know, push the Eidolon and also hold up like another push for like a Goblin Rabble Master here. And I'm gonna wait on the push just since they might cast a spell main phase and take 2 damage. And if they take 2 damage, then that's a 3-turn clock with Inverter. Something to be mindful of at least. Yeah, there's a Goblin Chain Whirler, and now we can push that. Got lots of 2-mana interaction. I will cast Opt, try to hit our land, but I'll keep a Jace, just because if we can go like interact with whatever they play this turn and untap and slam a Jace, it's going to be really good for us. Jace has a decent amount of loyalty. It's not like the most, you know, it's a pretty reasonable card, I think. I'm going to Censor here. I think I like trading Censor for Torbrand instead of using Gust here. Yeah, we're just going to try to 1-for-1 until we eventually draw a land. Karzev is fine. I'm going to let it resolve, and I'll drown it on my opponent's end of turn if I don't get another drown target. I'm going to Aether Gust the Chain Whirler. I actually don't think that they're going to keep it on top. If they keep it on top, it's not that big a deal. Awkward now that they have 5 points of damage with the Mutavault to... I guess they would have it anyways with the castle to answer our Jace. They put the Chain Whirler on top. So I think I like playing Thassa's Oracle. That way this can block the monkey, not putting a land on top. It can block the monkey like next turn and give us like 2 Jace activations. Oh no, they don't have enough cards in their graveyard for Torbrand to work here. Damn it. So I guess we're gonna drown the Karizev and play Jace and hope this buys enough time. And they have a Goblin Chain Whirler, so they're going to be able to kill our Oracle and deal 3 damage to our Jace, and then attack Jace with Mutavault and deal us 4 with Torbrand. Pretty powerful combination. How do we get out of this? Maybe we draw something like Kalitas Murderous Cut? Could be how we get out. I don't think we're going to have time to go for the combo. Certainly just need to get this Torbrand off the board. If we can do that, we're going to buy a decent amount of time. There's Inverter. I guess we keep Inverter. Our best draw is probably Murderous Cut, but we can just cast Inverter of Truth and block basically anything. Seems fine. Not sure that this is going to get us there, but don't think we have a ton of other recourse. So we're taking, if we block Torbrand, we take 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, go to 1. So we block Goblin Chain Whirler, we go to 2. Doesn't seem that different to me. Although it's like, yeah, any amount of damage kills us at this point, Torbrand in play or not. So let's just block Goblin Chain Whirler, and then if we draw like a Drown in the Lock for the Torbrand, we can like drown the Torbrand, block Mutavault, and take one from the Swift Spear. They just have a stomp anyways. So tough game. Got run over both games. It's possible we didn't sequence correctly. Interesting matchup. I haven't played it before, and I'm excited to test it more in the future. But let's go ahead and finish this video off with a round number 5. So in the draw for round number 3, we have a hand like we had last match where we have, you know, no blue and only black, which is kind of weird. We do have, you know, 4 1-mana black spells. I think I'm going to keep this hand. You know, on the draw, having 4 1-mana interactive spells is really, really high ceiling. Opponent goes Temple Garden, so it is likely our Fatal Pushes are going to be live. They're playing against Bogles. It looks like it's not the black-white version that's getting popular at the PT. It looks like a more classic green-white version. I'm going to take their Boggle, and I'm going to play this blue source. And I'm going to take all that glitters, and they are out of gas. The Temple Garden did lead me to believe that the Fatal Pushes would be live, but I don't. We drew a second swamp, and this is kind of like what I was talking about in the deck tech. We have really weird mana requirements where we want black early, and we want a lot of blue late, and we don't have the fast land. So once we draw another blue source, we get to go for the combo. Experiencing a little bit of lag here. I might activate Castle Locthwain to just draw a card here. I know it's pretty painful, but I think I want to kill them quickly. It's just like our life total doesn't matter until they can assemble a threat. Another this is again we've drawn all of our black sources. These are all of the lands in our deck that make black. We can't go for it again until we draw a blue mana. And they found a Boggle. And they're making it big. Hopefully we find a blue source off of this opt. There we go. Yeah, let's just cast Inverter of Truth. Like, we can, like, pretty likely we're going to be able to just block the Witch Stalker here. I forgot about Witch Stalker's ability. Maybe we should have main phase cycled. Oh, Censor is not going to trigger Witch Stalker. Damn. Yeah, I think we're going to be just short here. So we go to 8, and then they have 8 in the air next turn, and we have 1 too many cards in our library to win with Thassa's Oracle. We just have too many blue mana, or too much blue. Oh wait, hold on. Oh, cool. Castle Locthwain wins us the game. Castle Locthwain wins us the game. So we play Oracle, we activate Castle in response to the trigger, and then we have 2 cards in our library. Our devotion is equal to 2, and we win. Awesome. So weird game. You know, it's possible I was wrong about the Fetid pools. It's possible that they're just necessary to this deck, a necessary evil. We'll digest a little bit more after the league. I'm going to bring in the rituals. I think rituals are good, although they don't answer Vanguard. The Fatal Pushes are very likely to be just super dead. I think I would like to negate to answer Gideon of the Trials. I think the Duress is probably fine too. We need 1 more card. We can bring in Aether Gust as an answer to like Witch Stalker. Hard to get a Glade Cobra Scout with it though. I think 1 Aether Gust is probably fine. Plan A in this matchup certainly seems to be going for the combo, and I think that's what we're going to play to here. Okay, so we're on the draw for game 2 in match number 5. Turn 1 Glade Cobra Scout. Just going to play Fetid Pools tapped here. No aura. That bodes very well for us. In fact, that actually makes me just want to hold up a counterspell this turn. It's like our opponent's definitely going to have multiple spells in hand for us to target with Thoughtseize, and I'd rather just be able to like cast Thoughtseize and to hold up a counterspell next turn. And because I think I want all my lands to enter untapped with this plan in mind, I'm going to cycle Fetid Pools. Hopefully we hit a land. And now I think I'm just not going to cast the Thoughtseize. I think I'd rather opt into a land and just go for the combo and just hold up a counterspell this turn. And they concede anyways. So they kept a one-lander. I certainly understand trying to keep a one-lander when you have your best hexproof guy in Gladecover Scout. We were probably dead if they drew one land, and they didn't. So we 4-1'd our league. I think this deck is very, very good. Again, I think this deck is the best deck in the format. I've been really, really happy with it. I do think that we hit some mana issues, and maybe I'm wrong about the castles. We lost our match 4 largely because we had just not good mana, although we didn't draw Castle Lock Dwayne, but the mana is a hard thing to figure out in this deck, and I'm really interested to see how this deck evolves going forward. I'm also kind of thinking that I would like maybe like one Hero's Downfall / Brazen Borrower in the 75 to like deal with opposing Jaces if they hit the field, or deal with Gideon of the Trials if they hit the field. Having access to one when you have 4 dig through times are really just going to let you hit that one copy more often than otherwise you would be able to. But that's the deck. I'm going to be playing this more often this week on twitch.tv/Aspiringspike, and I'm very likely to take this to Magic Fest Phoenix. If you liked what you saw, you can hit the subscribe button. Come hang out over on Twitch. But I've been Aspiring Spike. Hope you learned something, and I will see you next time.